DeWitt Scott here today with another edition of Moraine Reads. Today's topic is a topic that is very, very important to me and near and dear to my heart. A public figure who I have looked to in my entire life since I was a child. My number one role model outside of family members, and that is Malcolm X. I have done a lot of reading and research on Malcolm. I have an extensive library on books dedicated to him, and I'm going to try to sum this up in a short video, but we'll do my best. But Malcolm, understanding Malcolm, analyzing Malcolm begins or cannot begin without first the Autobiography of Malcolm X. This is one of the most important books written in American history, published right after he died, but it covers everything from his childhood all the way up to the moment he left the Nation of Islam, and even the months after that. Published after he died, so there's questions about exactly what all was proved, but it is written by Alex Haley, but it's the first person narrative, so it's Malcolm's words. And this book is the beginning, the beginning text, the beginning anything for understanding Malcolm, and it's very important. Most people know this book, but they don't know many of the other ones that are just as great in a lot of different ways. One of my favorite books that is just not underrated, hasn't been really spoken of, is a book entitled The Death and Life of Malcolm X by Peter Goldman. This book is extensive. It has details that are not necessarily covered in the autobiography, and it just talks about Malcolm in a very broad way. Very great, very well researched. Peter Goldman did a fantastic job. It is one of the best books I've ever read about Malcolm. When I first got it, I think I may have read it in a day or two. 300 plus pages, 400 plus pages. I just couldn't put it down. It's a fantastic book. In addition to that is another book that made a lot of waves, got a lot of attention, and that is Manning Marable's A Life of Reinvention. And Manning Marable is a major historian, a scholar. He's passed away, God bless his soul. But he is a towering scholar who has worked in Ivy League schools and has done great research on Black history topics throughout his career. This book here delves deeply into all of the other books, or many of the other books that was written before this time, before this book was published, I believe in 2012, and goes into a lot of detail. As great as the book was, it was controversial in some ways because Manning Marable alluded to the possibility Malcolm X had engaged in homosexual activity and before he converted to Islam. And there were many people who were Malcolm fans that didn't like that. Some were okay with that. Everyone's perspective was different. But the book garnered so much attention and response that there actually was a response book called By Any Means Necessary, Malcolm X, Real Not Reinvented. This entire book is a response piece to this entire book, right? This book here is 450 plus pages, I believe. I can't remember. This book here addresses every single statement or I don't want to say accusation, but everything that's been written here is addressed here, right? Published by Third World Press here in Chicago. In addition to that, another Third World Press book is the Diary of Malcolm X. The Diary of Malcolm X is something that had been under wraps for a very long time and was rediscovered in the early 90s as pages that, or things that was written by Malcolm when he took his trip in Africa and the Middle East. These are all of his words too. It's a very valuable book, an important book that many people don't know about. This is the diary for the last year of his life as he traveled the world. Great perspective on it, just from him. It's a fantastic book. Other books that are first person narratives: Malcolm X Talks to Young People, Malcolm X, The End of White World Supremacy, and Malcolm X, Afro-American History, right? Malcolm X Speaks is a collection of speeches, many of the more famous speeches. Very good book as well. You get his first person narrative. The last year of Malcolm X sort of coincides, in my opinion, with the actual diary, right? It was written before the diary came out, but you can sort of put these two together and get a very holistic view of the pressure and the intensity that Malcolm was under the last 11 months of his life. He's just faced with a lot. So these two books go very well together. Lastly, there's Malcolm X, The Assassination. This here has, every chapter is a different theory on the way the assassination took place. We know the details as far as the date and where he was and, how many bullets were, how he was shot and things like that. But this here goes into some of the more conspiracy theories about things that happened leading up to the assassination and after, and sort of tackles it from multiple angles. at the very last one, this one here, this is a book I have not read. It actually came out at the end of 2020. I look forward to it. Very thick book, but it looks very good. Malcolm X, one of the greatest political leaders of all time.